There's a storm raging outside, and what better to do on a day like this than to stoke up the fire and listen to a story. Once upon a time in Croatia, there lived a hunter. I would love to tell you that he was a good man, kind and generous, but he wasn't. He was greedy, he was mean, and the only person he ever thought about was himself. Now one day that hunter found an old abandoned mill deep inside the forest. And when he came to a village close by, he asked the people there about the mill. But the people said, "Oh, don't go there. Don't ever go there. That mill is haunted." The hunter laughed in their faces. He said, "What? Haunted? By what? A ghost? Oh, come now. This is a mill. You can be rich being a miller. You are all stupid." So the hunter went, and he told everyone who wanted to listen or not that he would go to the haunted mill and he would shoot that ghost. Now I don't know who is stupid here, because as far as I know, you cannot shoot a ghost, can you? But the hunter went anyway. It took him a long time to walk through the forest, and as he came to the mill, it was already dark, and the moon had risen behind the trees. And suddenly, it didn't seem all that silly any longer that this mill might be haunted. He felt a shiver going down his spine as he looked at the huge old building, as he looked at the still mill wheel. But he went inside. The tight grip on his hunting rifle, he pushed open the door and he went inside. There was a huge big room. One part of the room was all the big old millstones. They took up nearly half the room. But apart from that, there was nothing in it, except for a cupboard at the very end of the room in one corner. He walked over to that and he opened it, but that was empty too. Only on a shelf up high there was a hammer and a handful of nails. The hunter put the nails into his pocket and hung the hammer off his belt, and then he squeezed into the cupboard and he closed the door and he waited. The mill was a big old house, as old as the house that I'm living in. And old houses at night, they make strange noises. It could be the old wood creaking, or maybe the wind howling around the chimney. But the sound that the hunter heard then could not be explained by wood creaking or the wind. No, that was footsteps. Footsteps coming towards the mill. He could hear the rustling of leaves, the breaking of twigs underneath heavy feet. And then he heard something that was like the clicking of claws on stone. The hunter was sitting in his cupboard, the rifle pressed to his chest, as the door of the mill opened. The hunter had left the door of the cupboard open just a tiny gap, and he pressed his eye to that gap and he saw that in came this huge, big, magnificent wolf. He had never seen a wolf like it before. Its fur was silver, glistening in the moonlight. And as the wolf walked around the room, the hunter saw it was a she-wolf, a female wolf. And she went around. She howled and she started to scratch. She scratched the ceiling. She scratched the walls. Sparks were flying where her sharp claws hit the old stone. And the hunter, he was frozen in fear. He couldn't move a finger. And then the wolf did something that no wolf normally does. She stood up in the middle of the room. She lifted her chin and opened her snout. And out of her snout came a voice, the voice of a woman. And she called, "Skin down, skin down, skin down." And her first skin, it opened up as if there was a zip in the middle, and it fell down, and out stepped a woman, a beautiful young woman with a young face, but hair as grey as the silver fur of the wolf. And she stretched, and she yawned, and then she curled herself up as if she was still a wolf, and she fell asleep. And only when the wolf lady was asleep could the hunter move again. He put away his rifle. He carefully opened the door of the cupboard and he tiptoed over to her. And he lifted up the first skin. And with that he snuck out of the mill. He walked around the mill. He climbed up the still mill wheel. And he took out the hammer and the nail from his pocket. And he nailed the first skin to a beam that was jutting out of the stones. And then he climbed back down again and he went back into the mill. But this time he was not careful to be quiet. Oh no, he banged open the door and he called out, "Hey you, woman, wake up!" The woman startled. She jumped to her feet. She looked around. She said, "Who are you?" "Me? Ha, well, I'm your husband." "Excuse me, who are you?" "Like I said, I'm your husband. You're gonna live here with me and you're gonna cook and you're gonna clean, and every day after a long day of work, you're gonna massage my feet." The woman laughed and she said, You do not know who I am. You don't know what I am." And she stood up straight and she called out, "Skin to me, skin to me, skin to me." And she waited. But her first skin was nailed to the beam outside the mill, and without it, she was trapped. She had to stay there. She had to cook. She had to clean. Every day she had to massage the hunter's feet. She was his prisoner. After a few years, they had a little baby boy. And the woman, she loved that baby. As much as she hated the hunter, she loved their little boy. And when the little boy was 8 years old, he went with his father to the village nearby, and he heard the people talking, whispering behind his back. And you know what they said? "Look, there he goes, the son of a wolf." The son, he looked around and he went to his father. He said, "Father, are you a wolf? Why do these people say that I'm the son of a wolf?" And the father laughed. "Me, a wolf? Nonsense. Well, but your mother, now that's a different story." And he told him everything. That night, the boy snuck out of his room. He went outside, he climbed up the mill wheel, and sure enough, there on the beam was still the first skin. And he took it down. He put it down onto the ground. He stood in front of it, and he remembered his father's words. And he called out, "Skin to me, skin to me, skin to me." And the first skin it lifted up off the ground. It wrapped around him like a cloak. And when he looked down at his hands, they were not the hands of a boy any longer. They had turned into the big paws of a wolf. The boy had turned into a wolf, a magnificent, beautiful, silver, young, strong wolf. And he ran through the forest. He jumped high, he ran fast. He met other wolves. He played with them. And these wolves pretty quickly noticed that he was stronger and faster than any of them. And they wondered, where did he come from? This strange, young, strong wolf. The boy had so much fun that he nearly didn't notice that dawn was creeping in. And he knew when the sun rises, he will be trapped inside the first skin. He had to get out before the sun came up. So when he noticed dawn creeping in, he ran back to the mill. He stood up on his hind legs and he called, "Skin down, skin down, skin down." And just as the first sunbeams were breaking through the branches, the first skin opened up, fell down, and out stepped the young boy. He picked up the first skin and he put it underneath his coat and he crept back inside the mill. And there he waited. He waited until his father had left for the day, and then he went down to the kitchen where his mother was kneading dough, baking bread. And he said, "Mother, I have your first skin." And the mother stopped and she looked at him. She wiped the flour off her hands. She leaned forward and gave him a kiss on the forehead. And she said, "My son, you have saved me." And then she straightened up and she called out, "Skin to me, skin to me, skin to me." And the first skin had lifted up. It wrapped around the woman and she turned into a wolf. The most magnificent she-wolf you have ever seen. And with a howl, "Ow!" she was out the door. And she never came back. When the hunter came back that evening, he had to cook, he had to clean, he had to massage his own feet, looking for his wife. But every night, the boy would sneak out of the mill. He would go into the forest and he would call for his mother. "Ow!" And the mother would come and she would run with him, and the other wolves would come as well, and sometimes the mother wore the fur, sometimes the boy did. And that is the story of the she-wolf and the haunted mill in Croatia.